Hi, and welcome back to A Positive Light. I am your host, Joni Lane, and you are listening to Beyond the Crescent Moon, a CD by Sam Houston. I hope you enjoyed that music. It's beautiful music. I love it. He's a very talented musician. And I recommend that you go to his website and check out his CD there, where you can purchase it for $10. It's great meditation music and relaxation music. That's why I like playing it on my show. We're here every Monday at 3 o'clock Pacific Daylight Time. And I'd like to thank LCM TV for having A Positive Light. We love being here. I have several guests on. And if you'd like to be a guest or know someone who might be a wonderful guest, have a positive message to share, please let me know. And I'd like to have more people on the show so we can get more positive messages out there to everyone. I'd also like to thank Mark Stangelini because he's our engineer here on this show, and we wouldn't be able to do this without him. It's definitely a necessity, and we appreciate him. So a big thank you, Mark, for your work. It's amazing what amount of work goes into these shows, and they seem like, oh, it's an internet show. It must be so simple, but there's really a lot of preparation and work, and we appreciate all the people who volunteer here and work here and the LCM staff. But Mark does put in a lot of time, so I wanted to make sure he knew he's appreciated. Tell you a little bit about why we have this show. We have this show because I'm trying to find a way to get the message of positive behaviors out there. How we can change our lives to be better, how we can be happier people, how we can make the world a better place, starting with ourselves and learning how to help other people be happy. I have a meditation center in Kelseyville, California, which is about 2 hours north of San Francisco. And we are a nonprofit, and we hold meditation classes and personal growth classes. We have guest teachers that teach various personal growth classes as well. But currently I am the teacher there and held Monday night meditation at 7 o'clock every week. There's no cost because we are a nonprofit. The intention is to help people learn to meditate, to get grounded, understand themselves better. And we do need donations, of course, to keep the place running, keep the doors open, so we can share more information to more people. So it is a donation-based class. Whatever you can afford, $5. Some people can afford $20, and some people can afford maybe none that week, but $5 the next week. So it's up to you and what you're comfortable donating. But again, it's every Monday at 7 o'clock. And we do basic mindfulness meditation, but we also do loving kindness meditation, Vipassana meditation, walking meditation, eating meditation. There's so many different kinds. So look into that. Come join us, or at least check out the website and see what we have to offer there. The classes get scheduled. In addition to the Monday night meditation, we schedule other classes. We have Reiki classes. I'm a Reiki master teacher, and I do have Reiki students. I teach first and second degree Reiki as well as master and teacher. So if you're interested in that, I would like you to give me a call or email me, and we can set up a class for you, talk about what works for you. There's a price on those. There is a cost to those, but there's a workbook and a certificate that you receive. It's pretty much an all-day course. There's a lot of information, a lot of practice that we do. So contact me regarding that, and check out the website too, apositivelight.com. And let's see, the second Tuesday of every month, I hold a 12 in Zen. And 12 in Zen is a group based on the book 12 in Zen by Bill Krumbine. And we meditate on one of the 12 steps, and we pair that with a Buddhist koan, which is a story or a parable. And we work on our steps based on what comes up during the meditation. We discuss what comes up and learn from each other. And it gives us some new ideas to work with, some new insights. It's a really cool class. I really like it. So if you're interested in learning more about yourself and deepening your relationships with your steps, and even if you're not in a step group, there's a lot of people who are not in 12 steps that come to these, and they really get a lot out of them. So consider coming in second Tuesday of every month. There's also no cost to that class. Also a life coach and spiritual coach. Try to help people sort things out, clarify what's going on in their lives, sort out what they may not want to keep in their life, maybe something they want to add, maybe a couple of shifts that need to happen, some changes that they may want to put into place. So I kind of help them with that. Use a little bit of meditation with that too, to settle and clarify what's going on. So I do enjoy doing life coaching and spiritual coaching. And I am also a healing movement Qigong leader. My teacher, Master Ming Tonggu, does hold regular classes at his Qi Center, and I hold them a few times a year. So I will be scheduling something in July, and that will be coming up on the calendar. And that is an all-day class, and it's a lot of fun, a lot of very powerful movement going on. And I have a lot of people that really want me to get another class going. So I think in July we'll do that. Please email me and let me know your interest so I can include you in the information. Feel free to call me, and I will return your call if I don't answer the phone. Happy to answer any questions. And I love suggestions for classes and information. So we're really open to whatever positive messages you want to share. The last few months, I have been going over different ways of meditation, different suggestions to you. And many times I have gone over the Four Noble Truths. And I'm realizing that a lot of times we need to be told something in many different ways before it starts to click, before we really start to get what's going on with those words. And the Four Noble Truths is a really basic understanding of human nature. I think a lot of times from the feedback I get, people are intimidated a bit by Buddhism. Sometimes if they don't understand Buddhism, they think it's one of those weird Asian religions that I don't understand. And I get that. But it's not religion. It's more of a science of mind. It's a way of thinking. And basically, when Buddha gathered the information, when he sat under the Bodhi tree and had his insights and his revelations and became the enlightened one, what he learned was how to be happy. And it's not really a big secret, and it's not really convoluted. And he wanted to share it with everyone because he thought, wow, it's so simple. And I've been looking at things in such a difficult way that I blinded myself with my thoughts. My own personal habits and behavior got in my way of my own happiness. And when he realized that, he could unveil the truth to himself, and that was the happiness. That's where it came from. He really simplified it. And it's so simple that it's difficult to do. And I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but it's true. I was listening to Pema Chodron on a talk that she did. And she was saying that the Asian teachers that she works with in her classes will often not understand the Western civilization's wording when we say we're not happy. They don't understand because in the Asian culture, unhappiness with oneself is a foreign thing. His Holiness the Dalai Lama said he had a very difficult time understanding why anyone would not like themselves. How is that possible? He just really could not fathom that. And people try to explain to him the pressures that Western culture puts on itself. The media tells us we're supposed to look a certain way in order to be desirable or in order to be accepted. And that's a foreign thing for a lot of Asian countries. But we get so wrapped up in materialistic things and shallow things that really don't matter, that we forget who we are, we forget that we were born beautiful, we forget that it's okay to love ourselves. We actually learn that saying that out loud is uncomfortable, and that's sad. When you don't like yourself, it's something, and I look at that, if the Asian people don't understand what that means, they don't even have a word for it. They don't even have a word for self-hatred because they don't understand that. It's not a cultural thing. In their society, it doesn't exist. So I looked at that and I thought, wow, what must that be like? Because growing up, I know that I was born beautiful. You were born beautiful. We were all born perfect and beautiful. A clean slate. And our parents and the people that raised us and our peers and our teachers, they all had very good intentions. And they made mistakes because they're human. But something about our culture teaches us that there's something wrong with us if we say we love ourselves. And that's sad. We should be able to say that about anybody or anything, especially ourselves. And we all know that you can't really, truly love someone else until you love yourself. We all know that. But yet we still look for people to fill the holes in our lives, to compliment us. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm not judging it, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. But I think it's something to look at. I think that if you're inviting someone into your life to fill a hole or to make something better, then you're actually avoiding the truth of what you probably should look at. The question then boils down to, why would we be afraid to look at that? What's that all about? Why is there fear around that? Where is that insecurity coming from? Rather than asking yourself, the one common thing that even the Dalai Lama says that we all have in common is that we all want to be happy. Everyone is always seeking happiness, seeking a fulfilled life in happiness, to walk in a state of grace and happiness. But when you can actually say, I can't be happy because I don't like myself, that's a huge statement. So rather than say that, maybe, and this is what Pema Chodron said, was maybe if you reword it and say, how many people choose or are seeking a life filled with stress and anxiety and chaotic lifestyle? I doubt that if you were not in a theater with an audience of thousands of people, that there would be anyone that would raise their hand, yes, I want that kind of life. So Rather than say, are you seeking happiness? Perhaps in the Western culture you can say, are you seeking a stressful life? More than likely the answer is going to be no, I'm seeking a way to get out of the stress, out of the anxiety, out of the chaotic feelings I have. So if you want to look at it that way, if that way helps you understand that the Four Noble Truths are simply a means of seeking a way out of stress and seeking a way out of anxiety, that may help you understand that there's steps you can take. So the first noble truth is suffering exists. Suffering exists because of the stress we feel, the anxiety, the unhappiness. And unhappiness can be based around so many things. Dissatisfaction with your job because perhaps you're not following your true path. There's so many things. But the first noble truth is suffering exists. It's just that simple. That's the first noble truth. And there's really not a whole lot of study that needs to go along with that. It's just suffering exists. The second noble truth is a little bit more involved. Suffering has a cause. There is a cause to suffering. Now, that means maybe you're obsessing about something that you can do nothing about, but you're still obsessing about it. You're still going over and over. Why did that happen? Why couldn't this happen? Why couldn't it be like this? It should be like this. Yeah, maybe it should, but the more you say that, the more stress and anxiety you're causing yourself, and you're still not solving a problem. The problem still exists. The suffering still exists. The suffering is the fact that you're hanging on to something that you can't do anything about. Maybe you have hopes for an outcome of a particular situation, and you've already set your mind on how that should end. And it doesn't, because things rarely end the way we want them to. Sometimes they fall close. But if you have your heart absolutely set on things the way things should be, and they aren't, you're going to cause suffering to yourself. The anxiety and the stress and the disappointment around that is suffering. So that is the cause of that suffering. The third noble truth of suffering ceases sounds very hopeful. And I think when the Buddha was talking about trying to explain this in 4 steps, he tried to keep it simple because it is simple. Suffering exists. Suffering has a cause. But suffering ceases. That sounds like, oh good, there's still hope. I'm not going to be stuck in that second noble truth anymore. When your attachment to the desire ceases, suffering ceases. So that's a big statement right there. Suffering ceases when attachment to desire ceases. So you have the power to choose a new behavior, a fresh behavior. You have the power to choose a new action or a new way of looking at something. So it falls into your hands. It falls into your life. This is your life. Every day you're taking a step. And you can ask yourself, am I suffering? Am I sad? Am I stressed? Am I feeling anxiety about something? If the answer is yes, then you know there's a cause. If there's a cause, you can ask yourself, am I the cause? Am I holding on to some idea that I want to have happen, but it isn't happening? Do I want someone to act differently than they're acting, but I can't make them act that way? You know, the answer is going to be yes. If you're suffering, it's because your mind is holding on to something that you are attached to. You are attached to that thought, and that thought is causing you to suffer. The third noble truth of knowing that you have the choice to think something differently, to look at it differently, to take a different action, it's a little bit harder. It's a little bit harder to do. Because now you have to actually look at what's causing it, what steps you can take, and what changes you can make. It's falling into your hands. That's giving you some power. It's giving you the opportunity to make some choices. And then the fourth noble truth of you can find freedom from suffering is possible by practicing the Eightfold Path, which is learning how to change your thoughts and learning how to not fall into the suffering. That's the lifelong practice, basically. The fourth noble truth is practicing, keeping yourself happy, keeping yourself in line with your thoughts and where they're going and how you might be causing yourself to suffer. So, one of the things that the Buddhist philosophy says is do your best to practice the 3 difficult practices. It's not saying practice them, it's saying do your best to practice them, because they're not easy to do. But if you do your best to practice these 3 difficult practices that I'm going to tell you about, you'll start to see some changes happen. You'll start to see some transformations. And today I really wanted to try to approach the Four Noble Truths in a few different ways, because the 3 difficult practices is another way to look at the Four Noble Truths. A lot of numbers being thrown at you. 4 Noble Truths and 3 difficult practices. But they all kind of explain the same way, the path to happiness. And when you're talking about Dharma, it simply means the path, the way. The way you choose to change your life into a happiness, into a lack of anxiety, into less stress. So the first difficult practice, excuse me, is acknowledging the behavior. That's the first difficult practice. So if you find yourself stressed or upset about something, acknowledge your behavior, not the other person. You have no control over them. Not the other situation, person, place, or thing. You have no control over them. But look at yourself. Look at your own personal behavior. Look at what you're doing. And acknowledge it. Just acknowledge it. Without judgment, it's just an observation. Just look at your behavior. It's fairly easy to do. It's not that difficult to look at our behavior and go, yeah, I know how I'm acting. Yeah, I know I shouldn't have said that. But you're acknowledging it. And you're looking at it. So that's the first difficult practice. Looking at the truth of the pattern of your behavior. Now the second difficult practice is the one that's really difficult. I think of the 3, this is the most difficult. The second one is to do something different. So after you've acknowledged your behavior and you see what's going on, now you get a chance to do something different. This is where you get a chance to work on the 3rd noble truth of ceasing suffering by doing something different. I look at these 3 practices, they're very challenging. They're very challenging because we have set patterns. We have go-to behavior. We have behavior that's been set since we were born. And yes, we were born perfect and beautiful, but we learned behavior. A lot of it is instinctual. We learn to protect ourselves. We learn when something hurts us physically that we don't want to do that again. So we find ways to avoid it or protect ourselves. When something hurts us emotionally, we find ways to avoid it or strike back. Or, it depends on our circumstances, how we were raised, what our household was like. We all become victims of our upbringing and our personality, our characteristics. Maybe they get strengthened through life. by circumstances and situations. But not always in the best way. I think we are animals and we learn things through instinct. They get hardwired into our brain, and it's very difficult to act differently. Even if we acknowledge the pattern of truth of our behavior, and we look at it and say, you know, I really don't like it when I act that way, but it's almost impossible to let go of. It's almost like I always act this way. Don't make me mad because this is how I will act. We use it as an excuse to continue bad behavior. We justify our bad behavior, or I shouldn't say bad behavior, but it's behavior that is not helping us, and it's causing suffering. So maybe I should call it our suffering behavior. Well, we hang on to it, and we keep doing it. I am not coming into this conversation with clean hands. I do it too. But I try to be aware of it, and I try to change it. So the second difficult practice is very difficult. Acknowledging it is one thing. Changing it is another. If we go through 40 years or 20 years or even 10 years of acting the same way every time a certain situation comes up, it strengthens that pain and suffering. It strengthens our relationship with that stress that we create. It's almost like we're so used to it that we're comfortable with it. Even if the behavior causes us more stress and anxiety, we go to that because it's what we know. We go with what we know. We stick with what's natural, what feels natural. It's almost like you're being sucked into an undertow. And before you know it, you're acting in this way that is causing you more and more stress. It's almost impossible to not act the way we habitually act. So, this is why it's so difficult. This is why we have such a struggle with this. Yeah, I know. I know that person was wrong, and I know that when they cut me off in traffic and I almost ran off the road, I just wanted to chase them down and teach them a lesson. You know, you get so caught up with this behavior that it's dangerous. It causes more problems. That's an extreme example. But even if someone just makes you mad at work, say somebody says something you don't like, and you find yourself really going off about it, are you really helping the situation? I know our ego gets caught up in that, and we're thinking, I really want to teach this person something. I really want them to not think this way. But now it's causing you a lot of stress. And you're really not going to change the person's thought. You can have a rational, calm conversation with them and try to get them to understand your point of view. That doesn't cause the same kind of stress and anxiety, but when you lose your temper and you start falling into violent patterns, I think it's very hard to feel good about yourself when you fall into violent patterns. I think that this world is getting more and more violent because we work less and less on ourselves. I think that other countries are really upset with us Americans because we're very arrogant people. We are. I really admit it. When I look at the world as a whole, I think, wow, no wonder people don't like us. We're pretty arrogant, and we're very self-righteous. But that does not bring us happiness, because I think Americans are very unhappy people on the whole, unless they start working on themselves. And that's really an observation. It's not a judgment call. It's more of an observation of what I see going on in the world. There's a lot of greed in this country. There's a lot of justification and bad behavior that causes people pain, yourself and others. And the more we don't work on ourselves, the more we choose to not change the way we behave, the more we choose to stay in our habits of behavior, the more we cause ourselves suffering, and the more it causes others to suffer. If we feel attacked and we're defensive, and we act that way, that's going to make someone else feel attacked and defensive. That escalates into wars. I think we really need to look at this, one person at a time, starting with ourselves. If you want the world to be a better place, you got to start with yourself. You can't change everybody else, but you can change you. You can change the way you react to things. You can change your behavior patterns. They're habits. It's not easy. But there is always a fresh approach to things. There's always an alternative behavior that we can practice. And the more you practice something, the easier it gets. So in the next half hour, I'm going to talk about some suggestions on how we can make it a little easier to look at some of our options. Make it a little easier to make better choices in our behavior patterns. Make it a little easier to create new habits to replace the ones we're really not that happy with. So we're going to take a 2-minute break right now, and we'll be back in 2 minutes. So I hope you come back to find out what else we could talk about in our behavior patterns and how to replace them with something positive. Thank you.
You're invited to participate in a true multimedia experience coming to a home near you. LCM TV is bringing Lake County into the new millennium with news, live broadcast, information, music, talk shows, and local programming, all streaming in high definition online and soon to be on your Roku box. Join us at lcm-tv.com or be a part of our studio audience. You can also watch the shows at lakecomagazine.com as we provide programming to inform, enlighten, and maybe even enrage you. On Lake County Magazine Talk Show with Terry and Pete the Tax Guy, Wednesday mornings at 9 a.m. Like racing? Try the Checkered Flag Show, hosted by Ace Naylor on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. All ages and divisions in regional and national fields. Joni Lane brings a positive light to you every Monday at 3 p.m. Pasha Space brings an international flair as they discuss ecological, health, and social issues in Haiti with people around the world. End up your week with positive, conscious sounds on Saturday at 9 a.m. with Sister T on the Bridge. This show is also simulcast on KMEC 105.1 FM in Ukiah. Our latest show, LCM TV News, is brought to you live Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at noon, and rebroadcast at 6:30 p.m. and noon daily, Tuesday, Saturday, and Sunday, featuring national, regional, and local news, weather, and sports. We have it all here for you on your local TV station, LCM TV. Join us online and soon on Roku, giving you access to all the best Lake County has to offer. We are LCMTV.com, your multimedia connection. Tune in for the fun. It's live TV at its best.
Hi, and welcome back to A Positive Light. I'm your host, Joni Lane, and before the break, we were talking about the Four Noble Truths and what they mean. There is suffering, there's a cause to suffering, suffering can cease, and you can live your life very happily by practicing new behavior. The Fourth Noble Truth. We're also talking about the 3 difficult practices, which is acknowledging our behavior, changing our behavior. But I didn't get to the 3rd one, which is making that a way of life. So making that a way of life, making a practice of it, it's difficult in the beginning. I think we get very caught up in the way we act. I think we get very caught up in the way we've always acted. We justify our behavior saying things like, I always act like that. Well, she should know that's how I always act. Well, he should know me better than that. That's how that doesn't mean it's okay. If it's causing you to be uncomfortable and unhappy, and it's causing others to be unhappy as well, then is it really the best behavior for you? If you're seeking stress and chaos in your life, then I would suggest going along the same old path. Just justifying your behavior and going along with it. But if you're seeking happiness, which is something that universally I think all men and women, the human race is always seeking happiness. We're seeking a relief from the stress and anxiety of life. And life is stressful. But mostly because we cause the stress. We look at life as if it should go the way we want it to go. And when it doesn't, I get really upset. And we throw a fit. We throw fits like children. We stomp our feet and get very upset. We yell at people. People kick the dog. You know, it's not causing you to be happy. It's causing more stress when you act like that. Excuse me. So taking the behavior that you know is causing the stress and changing it is very difficult. But once you do that, once you've identified it, once you've acknowledged it, once you've found other choices in your behavior and consciously decided, I am going to act differently, I am going to do this differently, then it gets easier and easier. The more you can catch yourself in your old patterns, the more you can say, aha, there, I'm acting that way again. I don't want to act that way. I'm going to choose to act differently. And that's a very powerful first step. When you acknowledge and can identify what's going on and consciously make an effort to change your behavior, you're making a huge first step. Because as patterns are developed throughout our lifetime, we fall easily into them because they're patterns, they're habits. But if you create a new pattern and practice it, and the more you practice it, the more you kind of loosen up to it, the more you kind of fall into it more easily each time, the less and less the other old patterns will come up. They actually start to dissipate and fall away eventually because you've replaced them with different behavior. So there's a lot of hope in being happy. There's a lot of hope that we can hold on to, that we can be happy, because you have the power to do these things. You're going to react anyway. Why not choose to react differently? Just try it on. It may be very uncomfortable at first. It may be something that you're really not sure fits you. You've been wearing this other cloak of habits for so long that it's comfortable. So it might feel a little uncomfortable at first to consciously do something different. But the more you do it, the more comfortable it feels, the happier and lighter you begin to feel. And then when you start feeling like, wow, I really like this feeling, this is a better feeling, it becomes so habitual you won't even have to think about it after a while. It will become your new habit. Now, I talked in the past about neural pathways. We have these neural pathways in our brain. They're little road maps. And the one we go to is the one that's used most often. When we use it less and less, it actually physically disconnects from the destination. And a new pathway, a new roadway is created with our new intentional habits that we're creating. So there's a physical thing that goes on too. And because there's a physical change in our brain where our neural pathways are connecting to new places because we're choosing new behavior patterns, we can actually change the chemistry in our brain. If we have a lot of depression, I'm not saying don't take your medication. Please do if you have some. But I'm saying by creating new neural pathways, you can change some of the brain chemistry that causes depression. And it's definitely worth a try. I think we're all seeking relief from anxiety and depression and stress. I think making conscious choices of creating new habits is something we're all capable of doing. I think we're also capable of looking at our responsibility in an unhappy situation or an unhappy thought. We can look at it and look at what we can do to change it, because we can't change other people, but we can change our lives. We can change the people we have in our life. We can change our situations. Most of all, we can change the way we think about them. Most of all, we can change the way we react to things. And that is a huge, huge step. Once you start doing it, even if it's just once a day, because you will be in your habits. You will constantly think in your old habits. But if once a day you catch yourself, you find yourself that I've been hooked into that old behavior. I'm going to make an effort this time to act differently. If you can catch it, you can make a change. Now, you may not be happy with the change you make at first because you're experimenting, you're trying things on, you're kind of seeing what works. And that's okay. The more you catch yourself, the more often you can catch yourself. And the more often you can try things on and see what feels good. So these are suggestions on how to actually work the Four Noble Truths. One of the things I suggest to the meditation students is insight meditation, which is basically looking at our behavior, our relationship to this life, our relationship to our thoughts. Do we really want to embrace all of our thoughts? Do we really want to include them all in our daily life? Or do we really want to let some of those go? Do we really think maybe some of these aren't working for me? Maybe some of these thoughts and habits I have are actually causing me a lot of stress. Maybe I can let them go and try new things out. In mindfulness, you can become aware of what your habits are. You can become aware of your behavior. You can look at yourself as you're sitting there breathing, and maybe you think a thought of something that happened that day that upset you. Look at your body and see where you're feeling tight. See if you're not feeling a little tightness in your shoulders or your chest or your stomach maybe hurts. This is your body telling you that it's not comfortable. That's a very good first step. Perhaps you can look at your feelings and see, does it make me sad? Does it make me mad? Does it make me scared? Those are feelings that are very negative feelings. Do we want to keep those? Or can I change my behavior so that I don't have that feeling? And through meditation, you can just kind of look and observe. You don't have to beat yourself up about it, which is what we tend to do. We tend to judge ourselves and think, boy, I sure do that a lot. I wish I wouldn't do that. And then we start beating ourselves up. That's not the most pleasant feeling either. So without judging yourself and without beating yourself up, just observe how you're feeling when you think of a situation, emotionally and physically. And then using your higher thoughts, create a new way of acting. With your higher mind, create a new way of acting. You don't have to create a new personality or a new person, but you can find ways that enhance your positive attributes. You can enhance who you are. You can make yourself a happier person by enhancing your positive feelings. It takes a lot of insight and it takes some work. It's not easy to change who we are. I should reword that. It's not easy to change our behavior and our patterns and our habits. So, I suggest looking at your habits for what they are. They're habits. Where did they come from would be a good first step. Jack Kornfield was one of my teachers at Spirit Rock, and he's written a massive amount of books, very, wonderful man, has a lot of insight. One of the things that he suggested that I really like is another look at the Four Noble Truths in a different way. Using what he calls the RAIN method, R-A-I-N, RAIN. And the R would be for recognition. You recognize what's truly going on in any given moment in your behavior. So, recognition, recognizing your behavior. Say there's a situation that came up, and you're reacting to it in your same old habits and your same old behavior. Recognizing it. That's all you have to do. No judgment, nothing else. Just by observing, you're recognizing your behavior. Yes, I have fallen into the same old pattern I always fall into. And the A, R-A-I-N, the A would be for acceptance. Just by accepting your behavior, accepting the fact that you acted the way you always act in your habits, it can help you relax. It can help you just say, yep, you know what? I did act that way, and I accept it. There's no judgment. It's just relaxing into it. The I is for investigation. Now, this is where it starts getting into having a little bit of work. And it's interesting work. It's not drudging work. It's interesting work. Looking deeply into what's going on. Looking at how your body feels, what specific memories or thoughts come up. If you were to practice in a meditation your RAIN thoughts about a particular behavior, a particular situation in the day, and look at your recognizing your behavior, accepting your behavior as an old pattern that you naturally just fall into, and then investigating it. What does that feel like in my body? What memories come up? What does that remind me of? Is there something sad or angry? What is that? It came from somewhere. There's a lot of investigation that can go on, and you can go very deeply with this. But just for the surface, just identifying it and investigating it. And then the N is for non-identification. In non-identification, we stop taking the experience as yours. It's not my experience. It's an experience. And I'm going to read this quote from him because I want to make sure I say it correctly. We see how our identification creates dependence, anxiety, and inauthenticity. We inquire of every state and experience the story and ask, is this who we really are? We make the conscious choice to not identify with the story. It's not us. We rest in the awareness and let go. So when you're practicing RAIN, recognizing your behavior, your habitual behavior, accepting your habitual behavior, investigating it, seeing where it came from, what memories come up, what maybe there's a history behind it. And then non-identification, realizing that that behavior it's not who you are. It's behavior. It's not you. We behave the way we do because of situations and circumstances that we were put into that taught us behavior. But that is not who we are. So non-identification is a very important piece in this, and understanding that your behavior does not describe who you are. It's simply a behavior or a reaction. It's a habit, but it's not who you are. Once you can see and really understand that this is not who you truly are, then you can start looking at, who am I really underneath all of this layers of habits and behavior, reactions? Underneath all of those layers, who are you, the core person, who you are? And a lot of the Buddhist monks will use the term your true goodness, your Buddha behavior, your Buddha nature. And your true goodness, the good person that you are, the one you were born as, the perfect, beautiful person, this is who you truly are. Not your behavior, not your patterns, not your habits. Those are reactions that you've learned, but they aren't you. So knowing that, you can start looking and investigating who you are, looking at the truth of who you are. How do you really want to act? How do you really want to react? What kind of a relationship do you want to have with yourself? I'm not talking about other people. I'm talking about the relationship that you have with yourself, because that is what's causing you to be either happy or unhappy. Your relationship with yourself is based on knowing your truth, knowing your true being, accepting and loving that person as the beautiful, clean person you were born as, and developing that person. Kind of letting go of all the layers that society has taught us, letting go of all the things that we think life has taught us, the things we hang on to, the behavior we hang on to because we're used to it, because we're comfortable with it, still causing us pain. If it's causing you pain and suffering, I can pretty much guess you're going to say you don't want to hang on to it. So when you can understand the truth of what leads to the pain and suffering, when you can understand the truth that your habits and reactions that cause pain can be changed to behaviors and patterns that can cause freedom and joy, when you realize that and you see that you can make those changes, you have the power to make those changes, then you can sit and say to yourself in the morning, and get up and say, today I'm going to make an effort, because it does take effort, to start to create the patterns and behaviors that can give me joy and freedom. I think that that's kind of an easy one to guess that you'd say, yeah, I'd like to do that. I think you can also understand from what I'm saying that's not going to be easy. This is so easy to fall back into our old behaviors. We react without even thinking. We talk without even thinking. We have conversations with people we don't even remember what we talked about. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you're involved in your own life, when you're actually involved in your own life, and you're really living it, and you're experiencing it, and you're mindful of how you're acting and reacting, and then you're making conscious choices to create new patterns of behavior that create freedom and joy, I think that's exciting. I think when you think about that, it would be really easy to, very enthusiastic about changing some of the things we do in our life. We can be very excited about the possibility that we can create new habits that create freedom and joy. And from that, we can help other people get there. By becoming patient and compassionate and loving people, allowing people to be human, allowing them to make their mistakes, but doing that in a loving way as you watch them grow and try to change their patterns. It takes a lot of understanding of patience and compassion. If that is part of your growth, practicing patience and compassion is part of your growth into that new pattern of freedom and joy. So there's nothing but positives with doing this. And even though it takes some effort, the changes are huge. To walk around in your life actually being happy. I'm not saying everything's going to be perfect. There's going to be days where it's more trying than other days. There's going to be days when you fall back into your old habits, and that's okay, it happens. Just don't beat yourself up about it. Don't judge yourself about it. Just acknowledge it. Acknowledge, okay, I did that. It's not really what I wanted to do. If I could do it over, how would I act? And you might even think of that. You know what? If I could do that over again, how would I want to act? And if you can actually think of a way that you would rather act, it kind of plants that seed. Maybe next time you might act that way. Maybe next time you've planted that seed of different possibilities, of fresh behavior. And I like that term, fresh behavior, because it's a kind of a rebirth. It's a way of looking at planting a seed, which is a birth of creating the happiness that you want in your life. I think that in my happiness classes that I've held in the past, part of what we talk about is when we were babies and we were learning how to deal with life, and we were learning how to react to life, I guess is what I should say. There were always seeds. We looked at other people. We looked at our parents, our brothers, our sisters, and we started to see how they acted, and we started to emulate them because we liked to be like them. We figured their behavior was acceptable, so I will be accepted if I act like that. And when we did that, we kind of started to erode our true nature. We kind of put the first layer covering up who we really were. And the more we do that, the more we lose our identity. The more we lose touch with that person that we really are. So now if you can take the time to meditate for a few minutes each day and just kind of get in touch with that core person, that general goodness that's inside of you, the basic goodness inside of you, I think you can uncover that person again. And then you can practice your best behavior. And I'm not saying the behavior society tells you is best. I'm talking about the behavior that's really the best to make you happy. And when you practice your best behavior, you can uncover your true nature easier, because that will come up for you naturally, because I think it's hiding underneath all that other stuff. And you can start creating a basic openness and a lightness, and then you can realize that that's always available to you. You always have the option to act differently, to uncover all that beauty and happiness and shed the stress and the anxiety that we layer on ourselves. So, in the upcoming weeks, I'm going to be talking about specific steps you can take in developing those new behaviors, specific steps you can take in how to recognize your patterns that aren't the best behavior, and how to catch yourself, and how to start creating some new behavior. And then you can help yourself achieve freedom from the habitual responses that you've always had. You can transform your old habits into new positive habits. Your addictions and repetitive negative behavior can be changed. So I'm hoping over the next few weeks I can help you see the steps you can take to uncover your innate wisdom and your inner ground, what keeps your feet solid on the ground. The tools that I hope to bring you are simple, and I think I'm going to try to keep it as simple as I can, because I don't want to intimidate you or make you feel overwhelmed. I want you to realize how easy it is to identify behavior and consciously change it, and uncover that true nature that you have inside of you. So hopefully I can do that over the next few weeks. Boy, time goes by quickly, but it looks like we're out of time. So thank you for joining us this week. Thank you, LCM TV, for having us here again. Thank you, Sam, for playing your beautiful music, Sam Houston. And I hope I see you next Monday at 3 o'clock, where I hope to have some suggestions for you on how to uncover your your true nature and to create some happiness in your life. So in the meantime, be good to yourself and take care of yourself and love yourself. So until next week, thank you for joining us.